Good evening and welcome. Thank you all for being here. My name is Eden King and I am a professor in the Department of Psychological Sciences. I'm also an alum, Will Rice class of 2001, and a college magister at Duncan College. I'm honored to be part of a group sponsoring tonight's panel, the Task Force on Slavery, Segregation, and Racial Injustice. If you're watching this, it's also pretty clear that I can't speak directly to tonight's topic, Black at Rice, living the Black student experience. I'm not Black. But I hope, like many of you, I am here to listen, to really listen, to learn, and to do my best to support Black students at Rice. And I know I'll learn a lot from our panelists tonight. Thanks to the recruitment efforts of task force members Sumara McGee and Dr. Alex Bird, we have a fantastic set of speakers. So just to give you a sense of how the next hour and a half is going to go, we're going to begin with some reflections and context from the esteemed and all-around awesome Associate Dean of Undergraduates and Director of Multicultural Affairs, Catherine Clack. I'll then ask each of the panelists to briefly introduce themselves so you know who they are, and then we'll take some questions from the task force. Finally, we'll take questions from the audience, so you can put them in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to them at the end. So without further prelude from me, I am very happy to welcome Associate Dean Clack.
Thanks so much, Eden. I appreciate the introduction. I want to first say hello and welcome to everyone who's joined this panel. Thank you so much for putting the panel together. Thank you as well for allowing me to take just a few minutes to talk to everybody tonight. I'm really happy to be here. This is a great idea. I was asked to talk about a little bit about my experience working with the undergraduate student population, or the student population, the Black student population in particular at Rice. I am now in my 39th year. I came to Rice in 1981, so I have a little bit of experience, a little bit of perspective on watching the evolution of Black student involvement on the Rice University campus. As you know, it ebbs and flows with what's going on a national level. As changes happen within the Rice University campus, you'll also see that students have been more vocal and more present. I started the office of what was then called the Office of Minority Affairs back in 1988. I came to Rice in 1981 as the Assistant Director of Admission. And one of the things, of course, you have to do when you're in the admissions office is right off the bat, you need to start to get, especially if you're not a graduate of Rice University. It's funny how alumni think of me and the fact that I've been here so long, and they think that, well, of course you've graduated, you've been there forever, but that was not my origin. And so I originally came in and decided that the best thing I could do is to launch myself into the campus community, start going to events, start talking to students, start hanging out at the residential colleges, start getting to know the environment at Rice University. And a group that sort of connected with me and with whom I connected very, very quickly is, of course, the Black student population on campus. They have been welcoming and have approached me on all sorts of issues from the very first day that I stepped foot on campus, which in some ways shows there was already a need from their perspective to have more administrators of color at every level in the university. Remember, this is back in 1981, when you literally probably could count us all on one hand and just, go on about your business. So some of the things that I've noticed, back in the 1980s, the Black student population was, of course, considerably smaller. And I do mean considerably smaller. We talk every year about the need to up the numbers, increase the population, increase the enrollment. But I can remember when it was very, very small. One of the positive things that I think came out of that were the fact that we all knew each other. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew everybody's first name. We knew the names of our custodians. We knew the name. Anybody, if you were Black on that campus, y'all knew each other. It was just that kind of community. And I think that the small size, the small population sort of forced students to realize we have to look out for and we have to find each other. So the need to connect with each other has always been there. And as you know, the residential colleges can be a little bit of a barrier to finding ways to connect. So over the years, all of us, particularly those of us within Division of Student Affairs and the Dean of Undergraduates operation, have been sort of dedicated to making sure that we find ways for students to connect. But back then it was just the Black students got together because there were so few of us, that safety in numbers. But they threw their own parties. They knew how to entertain themselves. They weren't waiting to sort of necessarily try to change the college culture. They just said, we're going to enhance the college culture. And we had what we called the rock and soul parties. And it was all the Black students getting together. It was always DJ'd by one of the Black football players. But everybody would just sort of get together as an opportunity to see each other, lay eyes on each other. Black Student Association, at that time it was Black Student Union. Those meetings always packed. Why? Because it was the place to see and be seen. It was the way that students knew they would have to connect. As the population has grown, we've found that we've had to be more sort of determined and dedicated in our efforts and our outreach at making sure that students can connect. And students have had to find better ways to connect. There are definite advantages to increasing the population because you do want to see people like you from a racial and ethnic standpoint on a regular basis. It's very exhausting, it's very frustrating, always being the voice in a class or the voice in a meeting. So you need to find that way to connect and communicate. You need to be able to speak in terms and language that is more relaxed and more fluid and more comfortable, in my opinion, a whole lot more fun than standard English. And so you look for those opportunities, and students have always looked for those kinds of opportunities. But the residential college sort of divided students. So one of the things I remember from my history is when Duncan College was first proposed, and when it opened in, I think, 2009, y'all are gonna have to correct my years like blur together like nothing now. But when Duncan College opened, they made a determined effort to be diverse in the student population and really, really reached out to, specifically targeted in particular Black and Hispanic students to say, we want you to be a part of the population in our college. And what you found was, for us, we laugh about it now, but this sort of mass exodus to Duncan College by Black students, because all of a sudden there was opportunity to have that sort of lived community experience and to live it at Duncan. Then we, grew to 11 colleges, and all those efforts again were back to we're being scattered across, but students have maintained ways to connect and be a part of the Rice community. Now they went from being a group that was very social, very, very social, and very connected within themselves, to being an organization that is very, very impactful on the Rice campus. And I think about a couple of the things, and I'm watching the time, I know I have the limited amount of time to speak, but I think about a couple of things that happened in the past, Duncan in 2009, that have made sort of the environment, a different sort of environment for Rice students. I think about those years in which we've had activists, and I have to talk about Blake Robinson and Shavante Wright, and the fact that they were determined by any means necessary to put together a Students of Color coalition or collective and put it together and say, look, we see these areas of weakness. It's not enough for us to just say, hey, we don't like this. If we could change that, we would change that. We're doing these things for ourselves to make ourselves happy, but there are some things that we'd like to challenge the university to do better. And if ever you want an exercise in how to prepare and benchmark and document and research a proposal to bring about effective change at a university, ask Blake Robinson about that process and the process of the Students of Color Coalition, because they are the reason that we are in the shape that we're in right now, which for a lot of people, we understand that it's constantly in need of improvement. What doesn't always need improvement, but we're such a better place than we were at 1981. And we are so much better a place than we were in 2000 even, or in 2009 when Duncan made this change. And a lot of that has to do with the efforts of students. So kudos to Blake and Shavante for saying, we can be Rice students and be impactful. There was a time when I apologized once to students, to Black students in particular, because I said, I owe you an apology. I feel like you weren't allowed to just be students. And what you find now is students who have the luxury and privilege and honor and ability to just be Black students on campus and work towards their degree and whatever their other interests are. But you also have a cohort of students who are still determined to make an impact on the Rice campus and make sure that it's better and more comfortable for students going forward. And so those are the two biggest changes that I've seen. I've seen greater programming. I mean, going from non-existent programming or just programming for our club to programming for the university, and getting tremendous turnout, getting tremendous buy-in for events like this, for programs like Soul Night, for all of the different sort of shows, performances, lectures, presentations. And a lot of them are student-driven and student-focused. So one of the biggest changes, I have to admit, has been this: yes, we're here and we're supporting each other, to yes, we can still continue to support each other, but we also know that we have to have an impact on the university because we want it to continue to be better. We want it to be better for our kids that we are going to send to the university, because a lot of your kids are showing up on my doorstep right now. We want it to be better for our grandkids, our nieces, our brothers, our sisters. And so what you still find is a cohort of students who know that Rice isn't perfect, but picked it for very deliberate reasons, and find all they want to do now is to make sure that their voices continue to be heard and that the university will essentially ensure them that they are continuing on their quest to make Rice a better place for all students, and essentially understanding that we have to also target making Rice University a better place for our Black students. So that's what I wanted to share in terms of perspective, but I'm happy to answer any questions later on if you'd like. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for those that amazing perspective and for sharing the sort of trajectory of change and giving us a sense of where things are now compared to where they were. And if others are interested in some of that history, you can also access the panel that happened a few weeks ago with many of our alumni, our Black alumni from Rice. So that's on the website as well, if you're interested in that. And you'll hear some of the same themes that you just heard from our awesome Associate Dean. So with that, I am excited to move on and hear from our student panelists, a diverse set of student panelists who have agreed to come and share their perspectives with us. I'm gonna ask that they just briefly introduce themselves with your name, your hometown, like what year you are in school, which college you're from, and if you have an intended major you're looking toward, that would be useful. So I'm just gonna call your name in alphabetical order so that it's not confusing who's next. Can we start with Aaeisha?
Sure. My name is Aaeisha. I am from Houston. I'm a Bakerite. I'm currently remote, but nonetheless, I'm a freshman and I plan on majoring in chemical engineering.
Thank you. Next is Zubaidat.
Hi everyone, my name is Zubaidat and I'm a senior at Wiess. I'm studying health sciences and I'm from Houston.
Thank you. Next up is Chase.
Hi everyone, my name is Chase. I am a freshman at Wiess College and I am from Minneapolis, Minnesota actually, so a little far away. And I'm interested in majoring in political science or social policy analysis.
Awesome, welcome. Next is Jaylen.
Hi everyone, my name is Jaylen Carr. I'm from Seattle, Washington, a senior from Martel and studying cognitive science and business.
Thank you, welcome. Next up is Eden.
Hello, I'm Eden. I'm a senior at Sid Richardson College, and I'm originally from Austin, Texas, and I'm studying kinesiology health sciences.
Great, welcome. Next is Alyce.
Hi, I'm Alyce Simien. I'm a senior English major, pre-law, and I'm from Lafayette, Louisiana.
Welcome. Last but not least, Dillon.
Hi guys, I'm Dillon. I am a sophomore at Wiess College. I'm originally from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I am a psychology and kinesiology double major.
Awesome. Thanks, all of you. So next up are some questions that the task force thought would be interesting to start with. Folks who are joining, feel free to drop. Oh, it looks like I skipped someone. Thank you for telling me. I'm so sorry, Casey. I don't know how I lost you, but there you are, and you are found. And please, I apologize, and please introduce yourself.
That's okay. Hi, my name is Casey. I'm a senior at Wiess. I'm originally from Calgary, Alberta, which is in Canada, but I'm living in Katy now. I'm studying kinesiology, sports medicine.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. I accidentally skipped you, and welcome. So the first question that I was hoping to ask all of you, and feel free to jump in, or if you want to like physically raise your hand to get my attention if you're having a hard time jumping in, that will probably work too, is actually something that Associate Dean Clack mentioned, which was this idea that people come to Rice for a reason. And so I was hoping that you each might share, or some of you might share, what made you choose Rice and what did you expect to find when you got here?
So for me personally, I moved to Katy, Texas, my senior year of high school. So while everybody was like talking about, oh, I'm going to UT, I'm going to A&M, I'm going here, I had no clue about any of the schools that were around here, and I hadn't really done my research, if I'm being completely honest. So I've been playing like sports my whole life. I'm on the track team, by the way, the women's track and field team. So when I was scouted, I guess, that was like the first time that I was like, oh, there's a school named Rice University in Houston. And it kind of gave me the opportunity to like continue playing sports. And it was also close to home. It's like a 40-minute drive. I'd get to be like near my family, getting like a great education, you know, when I did do my research and I figured out like what Rice is, what Rice stands for and all of that. So I guess that was like the biggest factor into me deciding to come to Rice.
I could also add that I chose Rice because, I mean, mostly from the videos and like the ads, I see many different types of people there. And so I thought, coming from a high school that was mainly whites, that I thought, oh, me being like some other race is not going to be like that weird. Of course, like that's present wherever you go. But I thought here, the idea of diversity and different kinds of figures being in the classroom is not going to be as odd, or I'm going to be like more welcomed in that sense. So a little bit of the diversity, obviously the education, and it is close to home.
I think what Aaeisha just said about race really, really resonated with me because I'm from a very white suburb of Seattle. And so I think coming to Rice when I did was very instrumental in my sort of reclaiming of like racial agency, if I can call it that. Because I think a lot of modern issues surrounding race in general were not really as primed on my radar because I was surrounded by white people that weren't concerned with it. And so coming here and just sort of reclaiming those sort of aspects of my identity was really instrumental in learning more about what I stand for and those sorts of things.
For my process of choosing Rice, it was somewhat elaborate, and since I'm a freshman, it was really like closer than it is farther away from where I am right now. But again, I would say, as mentioned by some of the other panelists, like I was looking at diversity, and when I was comparing my other schools I was looking into, a lot of it was like, how are they treating students of color on campus, and how many students of color on campus? Which, I mean, it's not like overwhelming anywhere usually. We're usually all spread out unless you're going to like a HBCU. But coming to Rice, that was something I was looking forward to, like meeting other students of color in academics, where I came from a high school that was mainly white.
Yeah, kind of just to add on what like everybody said, I think there's a difference to being, you know, a diverse school and then being committed to the students that make up that school. So I think that was very that was shown to me through like Rice's financial aid. So like if I'm being honest, I think like choosing the best school for like the best amount of money, it was like Rice was that school for me. And like I think once I was admitted, I came to campus, like toured and everything, and it was just like the willingness that students were to like help me. Like I was very lost because Rice's campus is not very intuitive. So and they would just walk me like to my destination. And I thought that was really unique about like the students and the university itself.
Yeah, I think for me, it was also like the academics. Like since I was in Houston, I always knew about Rice. It was always just right there and always that, very rigorous institution that everyone wanted to get into. And so I always had it on my radar. And as Eden said, yeah, it was like the best education for the best amount of money for me. I'm a Questbridge match scholar. So it was kind of like, yeah, I'm going to go to Rice.
Well, for me, it was actually, I was going to visit a college in San Antonio, and Houston was on the way there. And my parents were just like, oh, why don't we go visit Rice? And I was just like, Rice? I'm not going to be able to get into Rice. And I visited it, and I really liked it. And I'm just really grateful that my parents encouraged me to apply, because I wouldn't have applied. I just didn't have the confidence in myself that I could get in. And I think going to Rice has really built that confidence for me. And the fact that I'm going to be graduating this semester from Rice, like as a Black woman, is just I wish I could go back and tell my like senior self in high school that just to have more confidence in myself.
Those are amazing stories to hear what brought you to Rice. Thinking back again and looking at your experience since you made that choice, in what ways do you think your expectations of Rice have been fulfilled, and in what ways have we fallen short?
Personally for me, coming into Rice, I knew it was going to be hard, and Rice definitely fulfilled that. 100%. But that being said, that doesn't mean that it's not doable. It very much so is. And I think I found a lot more support than I thought I would. Like, I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect them to just like throw us out to the wolves. But like, you find support like within the people you meet there, and like the clubs that you might get involved in. Stuff like that. So that kind of came as a surprise to me. Rice isn't big, so you really have no choice but to find community. Like, it's inevitable that you find community in some sense or in some way. Sorry, what was the other part of the question?
I was just asking, in what ways have the expectations been fulfilled, and in which ways have we fallen short?
Okay. I mean, no school is perfect. I don't think you're gonna find like anywhere that like fulfills all your wants and dreams and everything that you feel like you need. But like as a Black student, I feel like, I don't know. I know we brought up the residential college system. It was really difficult for me living at Wiess for 2 years, and not not finding community there. By no means do you have to like love your college, be at your college 24/7, because there's so many other people on this campus that you can get to know. But it's really weird going into Rice. It's such this like there's this insane like sense of like college culture, I guess. But coming into O week and literally sitting in like the corner of like the commons and like trying to count all the Black people in my year, and it all lands on one hand. And it's difficult from, I guess, just speaking like as a Black person, like a week was like a lot for me. So like when they're playing music and it's music that I don't listen to, or people are making jokes and like I joke about something and it's like, oh, you don't get that. Stuff like that, not seeing people that look like you and have that same sense of, I don't know how to explain it, but like when you get people of the same, like when you get like a bunch of Black people in a room or like anybody, like really any ethnicity, like it's kind of the shared like sense of belonging. And I definitely didn't get that. And I feel like it really sucks as a freshman because it kind of spreads out the Black community like even more when it's like 3 or 4 of us like at each different college. And it's like, well, if I want to see another Black person, I got to walk all the way across campus, or I've got to go here, I've got to go there. I think partly that did bring us closer together as a Black community, like as Black students. But at the same time, I feel like we shouldn't have to trek to find somebody that looks like us, you know, like going into class and like majority of my classes, I'm the only Black student there. Sitting in the RMC, like I work at the RMC at the info desk, so I see everybody that passes through and it's like, I might not see a Black student. I think that was something that kind of bothered me at first. I'm kind of used to it now, and I know that my people are here and I know where they are, but it's like I shouldn't have to, I don't know, I personally feel like we shouldn't have to go to the ends of the earth to find that. Like we shouldn't have to go to the MCC to find other Black people. We shouldn't have to go to this particular college to see other Black people. We shouldn't have to like text each other like, okay, where are we gonna eat lunch, so that we can be around other Black students, I guess. Yeah.
I think what Casey said about finding community was like extremely profound, in that something that I didn't expect at all was just I'm trying to think of how to articulate it. For lack of a better word, just the Black excellence that all of the Black students on campus demonstrate just from existing, like literally doing anything is like, is sort of a, you know, as a Black person, it's you're challenged and you're oppressed and you sort of have to fight, you scrap a little bit just to make it day by day. And like seeing the capacity that Black students on campus have to, the capacity and tenacity to occupy positions in leadership or just be themselves so openly was like very, very, very inspiring for me, especially coming from such a sort of stifling and homogenous environment. But to this day, I still just look around myself and see all of these wonderful Black students and what they're doing and the impact that they're having, and I'm still awestruck. And I think I derive a lot of inspiration from that on a daily basis, which is not something I was necessarily expecting.
To build off of that, in like community, I think like that was one thing I really expected from Rice, because it's a small school and both my siblings went to school with like thousands and thousands and thousands of students. And so I was like excited to really get into community. And going off what Casey said about the residential college system, I didn't have like the greatest experience fitting in. I didn't have the greatest experience like even within like my O-week group, where everyone's like, I love my O-week group, I love my O-week group. And like my O-week dinner was scheduled in the middle of my practice because I'm also on the track team. And so it was just like, dang, I can't even go to that. So I felt like that was hard, and I'm not fully Black, I'm mixed. So even during O-week going to some of the Black student clubs, I felt like an outcast there because I was like, dang, I'm the lightest person here. And like I didn't expect, like I expected more people to look like me. And in a sense, it's like more people do look like me, but at the same time, there's a lot less people that actually look like me, and like can relate to the struggle being pulled in both directions. So I think like Rice, it's hard, I think, as a mixed student, because like I didn't even come into Rice, kind of as everyone else shared. Like I went to a really white high school, so the less Black you can be, the more accepted you are. And so I was like, I didn't even come in feeling like fully Black. And then I like saw all these people that were super proud to be Black. And I was like, I don't even feel like proud to be Black. And so it was like a really hard like tension within myself to like, do I fit in enough to be a part of this community, or like am I kind of like a lone ranger because I still don't fit in with the white students? And so that was really hard for me, but I think like it was really cool because the community feel of it being small, I was able to get really cool mentors in my professors and in coaches and different aspects of that nature, which helped me figure out my identity more. And so I think that was really cool. Like Rice did have the small school feel where there's always someone right around the corner to help you and help you feel heard. So I really appreciate that about Rice.
Y'all spoke about a lot of like negative experiences in your freshman year, and I don't know, I thought I should add as a freshman that maybe it's the fact that like I'm home, so the any negative experience that I could have had with like a week being like off, or like my a week group being off, or like activities like being too far away for me to interact with other Black students, they seem to me to be at the same reach as other activities. So like, because I still attend my classes on Zoom. If I wanted to go on to a BSA, like general body meeting, I still hop onto Zoom. So it might just be like my luck that I happen to have gotten a decent experience and I don't feel isolated. I mean, it's up to me to like reach out, and maybe that problem will be like, maybe like I'll have to confront that problem when I get to campus, because then I'll notice like really, oh, the people in my college really aren't like very, very different, or I don't really see somebody like me here. But I kind of, I don't know, like ignore, I guess, or not really realize that that is happening because I'm not there at Baker seeing any like clashes or issues that I might feel when I'm looking at my peers. So luckily I haven't seen anything terrible happen. Hopefully that continues. We'll see.
Yeah, I would like to add on a little bit about being a freshman, because I've only been here for a couple months now, and so far my experience has been pretty good. And obviously it's not anything like what other classes have had because we have COVID on top of everything, and I am in person for clarification. But I did enjoy my O-weekend experience, and I'm a person that's not like extremely social, so that doesn't help like when connecting to other Black students and just in general. And so having COVID, it's to some degree helped with O-week for me, because it was still a lot, but there was limitations on what we did. And I think that maybe helped me with like getting to know people, because it was mostly talking and less activities comparison to other years. In regards to, someone asked about like the expectation or like the rating of Rice being the happiest campus, college, undergrad campus experience, or whatever the exact phrasing is. It wasn't like the thing that was selling me on Rice, because I'm not too naive to assume that everything's going to be awesome based off like a statistical score of all colleges, which ones marked the happiest. But it wasn't necessarily unappealing to like see that as a college campus, because I would assume that something is being done well. Mainly my main focus when looking for colleges was looking for a campus that wasn't too competitive as in their culture. I wanted to like enjoy, or at least try to enjoy, my academics to the extent I could talk to my peers about it and not feel like I was competing against each individual to do my best, because at some extent that kind of what it felt like in high school. And yeah, and additionally, like being a person of color, then you have like an extra layer of how you're supposed to perform academically, because people have certain expectations of you, and then I feel the pressure to top that. So yeah, I think so far I feel like it's been pretty welcoming in terms of their academic environment.
Just from my experience, I think Rice has a very specific type of student, like that they would consider like the happiest student. And I don't think normally like minorities fit into that. And I think with the residential college system, there's also a lot of flaws for minority students, especially like people of color and Black students, because when you look around and you don't, like a lot of the things that people tend to like about the residential college system, I think Black students tend to not like, just because they don't get that. They don't get to like look around and feel that sense of community that others might get to experience. They don't get to see as many advisors look like them, and they don't get to see as many faculty look like them. And we have to go to like these specific minority group sessions that maybe the other people don't have to go to just to, you know, see people that look like you in a room. So yeah, the faculty has always, like, especially the Black faculty has always really been my backbone and like very helpful in that sense. But yeah, that's my experience.
I just wanted to add something really quick, not to just keep talking, but mentioning like O week in freshman year, I wanted, like, how I mentioned that, like, coming into O week, I like went around and like looked and I was like, hey, how many Black students? And counted them all on one hand. And then I looked and I was like, how many Black advisors? And we had two, one of which was from the college, one was from another college that was co-advising. And then going through like freshman year and not seeing like those Black faces at my college in my classes. And I just know how I went through freshman year. And it was lacking in people that looked like me, like exponentially. And it's not just like the people in your college, but it's also like staff. So like RAs, magisters, like professors and stuff like that. And I think something that kind of took away from my experience was that I kind of took it on myself. And I know that it's not just me, because I definitely know like other students and graduating students who did the same thing that I'm doing, like that I did, where I kind of put my needs and stuff aside because I was like, I know what I needed freshman year and I didn't get that. So why would I let other Black freshmen come in and not get that? So like things like staying on campus, like my sophomore year, I was planning on moving off, but I stayed because I was like, other Black students, like Black freshmen, need to see that there's Black students on this campus. Like, it's no reason for them to come into these colleges and look around and not see people that look like them. And it's just, I don't know. So I feel like that kind of put a stressor on me. And I know that it was the same for other students. Like, I know this for a fact, because I know seniors who did it my freshman year, who stayed around because they were like, the freshmen need to see other people that look like them. And I feel like that shouldn't be something that the students have to worry about. That shouldn't be something that we as students who have to go to class, have homework, have jobs, have practice, like full-time student athletes. I have an on-campus job. I had 3 at one point. I shouldn't have to worry about making sure that, I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say, but if that makes sense, like I shouldn't have to like stick my neck out and be like, hey, I'm here. Like it kind of feels like that little, like, you know, the diversity photo. Like if when they're like sending photographers off to like look around and like take pictures on campus, and like when they find that Black person, they will take that picture of that Black person. And suddenly that picture's on the Instagram, it's on the Twitter, it's on the website, it's being printed on pamphlets. And it's like, y'all are here, but it's like, are we really? Especially when we're like stretched so thin, and then we have to do so much more to make sure that like others know that we're here. Like, I feel like after freshman, sophomore year, all the Black students move off campus and it sucks for the freshmen because they don't get to see Black upperclassmen, but it's like, at what cost are they gonna like stay on campus when it's like it's an everyday thing, like walking around and not seeing people that look like you, going to class and not see, like, it's just, you feel kind of lost in a sense, or like kind of like on the outside of everything. Like you can sit in the commons and eat food completely by yourself while there's like a full table of other people and nobody says anything to you. You can try, but it's like, it doesn't work. And then if you do suddenly have like that group of Black students eating at the commons, I know for a fact this happens so many times when me and my friends would get together, it doesn't matter what college, people would be like, oh, what club meeting is this? Or like, oh, like, what do you got? Like, but it's like, why did you expect it to be like a club meeting, like for it to be Rasa or BSA? just because you see like a bunch of we just can't be regular students. I feel like it was just that like extra stressor, if that makes sense.
Well, building on some of those reflections, there's been a lot happening on campus related to race relations and the Black student experience, including the formation of this task force and increased presence of student protests around racial issues, the new Center for African and African American Studies, and a list of Black student demands, just to name some of the things that have been happening. What do y'all, as current students, think about these developments? How do you view these different issues that are happening around us and within the hedges?
I think it's a culmination of a lot of efforts that have been going on for a long time. And because of the unique situation that we're in right now, from the spring going into the summer with the protests and with COVID as well, everything just like culminated into a point, like a tipping point. And so where this whole world suddenly is like, oh, wow, diversity, inclusion, that's important to us. Companies, they need to have it. So they look, like very current with the times, that they look woke. They look like they're not being unempathetic, even though that's how they were before. And so I think it's a lot to do with, I think just like all the task force and the new center, like I think all those are really good developments that should have happened a long time ago, but I'm glad that they're happening now.
From my experience as a Black student leader on campus, I'm the president of the Rice African Student Association. Honestly, like I'm very grateful for like the progress that we're making. But I know like Black students need a lot of support, especially right now. And as a leader on campus, it's been a difficult task to, balance, fostering community and, during a pandemic and like making sure new students feel welcome. But then on top of all of that, like, all of trying to continue to push our platform as a community and being like one of the voices for that has been kind of a difficult experience, but I'm like grateful that I'm here to do that. So I'm looking forward to seeing the change that's going to happen. I think people are a little bit like wanting the change now, and like I'm becoming impatient, like, like how long are we going to wait for change to occur? And like, not just at Rice, but in society in general, like, I don't think people have time anymore. So I think just maintaining that sense of urgency is something that's going to continue.
I think Eden brings up a really good point in regards of support. I feel like I'm slightly anxious about other groups supporting the Black community, not necessarily in that there's anything innately wrong with the support, but I'm concerned that it's conditional, or that it will stop after the discussion about just in general, like Black people stops in white people, if that makes sense. Like if that sort of conversation just naturally hits its turning point, or it fizzles out, that people will suddenly be like, oh, well, like things are good now. And then we won't be having these discussions about further developments that are needed. They're necessitated by the current conditions of not only the country, but of Rice. So I'm anxious, but also hopeful that we are going to continue to have this discussion for years to come, as long as it takes, far beyond us.
If I'm being 100% honest, I feel like there's a little bit of frustration among some of the Black students, just because I feel like we did lay out a list of demands, and a lot of those demands haven't been met. And I think that the task force is a great addition, but I think it's also important to note that that like wasn't something on the demands, and some things that were on demands are things that we think are more pertinent. And we're constantly in the group chat, voting on these things, talking about these things. There's student leaders working on these documents to like lay out these things that we do want. And unfortunately, I don't see a lot of those things panning out. And it is scary to think that maybe this task force is conditional with things going on in the country. And maybe the support is conditional because of the climate. But I don't know. I guess I just wanted to say that there is a lot of frustration and just put it a little more bluntly. But I do think Rice could have very easily have done nothing as well. So we are definitely grateful for everything that occurs. But I think there is just a little frustration in feeling like you have to be grateful for the bare minimum sometimes.
So I really, really want to emphasize that whole being grateful for the bare minimum. It's like, I don't know, when there's so much that can be done and so much that is feasible, and then Rice saying something as little, like doing something as little as tweeting, like say they tweeted like Black Lives Matter, and then like a bunch of alum or a bunch of people will be like, so why are the students still upset? Rice supports you. And it's like, that's not enough. Like that's not enough, if that makes sense. Like why are we, I feel like we shouldn't applaud the bare minimum or like common decency or like things that should be happening and things that should be said. We shouldn't have to, but yeah.
I think also taking the sole pressure off of students and Black faculty to complete these tasks. And like, this should be an everyone issue. And like, we should all be working towards, social justice. And like, we should all be trying to be critical of ourselves and like advance our community as a whole. Like, it should be in everybody's best interest. And like, I feel like as a Black student, you always get the questions like, okay, so like, what can I do better? This is that. And like, I think there are a lot of resources on campus that like can show you that, and like can like a lot of emails and stuff that have gone out that like clearly list like these are some like helpful ways to get involved. So just like making sure to like look at those things first before like placing the effort on the Black student or Black faculty or like people who are getting involved, because it's already taxing enough to like experience it, let alone like work towards it, let alone like help other people. Not that we don't do it, because we do. And like I'm happy I'm like a very open person with that, but like just in general, making sure to not put the main pressure on like Black people.
Yeah, we talked about exactly those issues when forming this panel, and thinking through what y'all have reflected: frustration, fear, exhaustion, like this obligation that isn't fair. And yet here we are asking for more information, and arguably for a good reason, but also recognizing that once again, we're looking to Black students to tell us what to do or how to improve Black experiences at Rice. So we recognize that, I think, in our subcommittee working on this. And I guess we still wanted to hear the voices and appreciate your voices tonight. Were there other thoughts on that question? I pasted it in the chat because it's kind of long. Okay, then moving on to the next question. Understanding that Black students are not a monolithic group, What do you wish that alumni, faculty, staff, and other community members understood about being Black at Rice today? We've heard about some of the experiences coming to campus. We've heard about some of the ways that you're connected now. What are the sort of messages you think are most important for people to hear?
Speaking on us to like right now, present day, a lot of us are tired, like exhausted. Like it's been a nonstop like uphill battle. Like forget just being a Black student at Rice, like coming in and like, you know, being at a PWI or like, you know, a predominantly white institution. But in today's climate with like, you know, police brutality and all the protests and things that were going on, it's been a lot because we're not only like students or like student athletes or like students who work, like we are Black students, and those things that people think happen outside of Rice or outside the hedges, they happen in the hedges too. Like, and forgetting anything that we may face personally, like it's a lot to have on your back. Like opening social media and it's another thing. It's another thing. It's another thing. It's another shooting. It's another this, it's another that. Like right now, Africa is in turmoil. From like SARS to what's going on in the Congo, like it's insane. And given how this semester is going, like just how it is as a regular student, but then adding a Black student onto that, like I'm exhausted. I'm tired. We didn't get like, you know, our midterm recess. It's class back to back to back. And everyone's like, well, it's Zoom. I'm like, I'm so zoomed out. I'm so zoomed out. Zoom fatigue is insane. Like I had to make it like a priority to do this because I knew it was something that I wanted to do and something that I needed to do. But like, I'm tired of going to class. Like, I'm like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, my people are dying. And like, I'm Nigerian. I was born in Nigeria. My my people are dying and being murdered and killed. And I'm just supposed to sit in class while everything is going on over there. While like family is calling back home and like people are at protests and stuff like that. They're not coming home. I'm just supposed to go to class. I'm supposed to hand in my assignments. I'm supposed to do my projects. I'm supposed to present this. I'm supposed to take this exam. Like it's extremely tone deaf and kind of cold to me because I can email a TA and be like, hey, like it's a lot going on right now. I can't get this into you tonight. And they're like, well, with respect for the other students. And I'm like, sorry, I'm not talking about the other students. I'm talking about me. I'm dealing with a lot. It's a lot going on that you yourself do not have to think about, but I have to think about daily. And I need some time. And they're worried, well, but the other students put in a lot of work. I'm sorry, but the other students are opening Twitter, Instagram, and seeing bodies that look like theirs on the ground. And it's become like so desensitized. Like Black people, like we're opening up social media and we're seeing like a lot of graphic stuff and we're just supposed to go about our day. Like it's fine. And I feel like a lot of professors and a lot of people aren't understanding that. Like I'm taking my exam and that's what's on my mind. I'm waiting for a call from my mom to hear about my cousins. Like it doesn't, I just feel like people aren't understanding that. And our professors aren't completely understanding that. Like it's just so far removed for them. But it's not for us. Like it's very personal and people aren't like, I don't know. I feel like when it happens, people are like, well, you didn't know them. And I'm like, well, I could have been them. Very, very easily, I could have been them.
I think again, to Casey's point, like if there's one sort of thing that I would push for everyone to add more consideration to is just the Black circumstance and the fact that there are so many, to a point about things being personal, there are so many individualized trauma and just experiences, this whole gamut of different aspects of the Black experience, and you really have no idea. You have no clue about what people have been through, where they're coming from, those sorts of things at a glance when you're, as a professor, like making those sorts of comments where you're like, oh, well, like, or even as another student, like it didn't happen to you. You have no clue what sort of traumas and weights that people are carrying. And I think it's wholly inappropriate to be making those sorts of comments. And I just wish that as a whole, like we as a society could be more accommodating to that.
I'm sorry, I also wanted to add before I forget. It's also a level of respect for not just Black students, but students, period. And I'm not sure, like awareness on a lot of things. Professors have to be very careful when they speak. It shouldn't be like, there's words that they should not be saying that they want to say for, what's the term? I don't even know what term to use, but I know for a fact it's not just something that happens at Rice, but it's no reason for us to hear like racial slurs for context or so that you can grasp the depth of what's going on. There's no reason for professors, especially like in times like this, to be doing that. And that happens at Rice. And that's another thing like people need to be aware of. Like it's not like, and then it's only the Black students that are like, why would you do that? And everyone else is kind of like, yeah, I'm understanding the depth of the situation now that you know, like, I feel like everyone needs to be like in tune with not only what's going on, but like the needs of their students. Like, it's no reason for us to hear things like that.
I see nodding. Does anyone want to respond to Casey?
I just think her point about how the things that we see in the world, like we also see within the hedges, like the amount of racist jokes I hear on a daily basis. And it's like, it's just a joke from people I care about, but also from people that I hear in passing. It's just like, it kind of blows my mind thinking that we go to a school that like prides itself in like the happiest students and like prides itself in diversity and like inclusion. And yet it's like, I've had experiences where I will hear a racist joke, I'll confront it, and there will be adults standing right there, hear it, and say nothing. And it's like, am I having to fight this battle by myself? Because then it's like, oh, it's just a joke. I don't know why you got hurt. And like, I think the thing is like, we don't get to choose how people view us. Like we don't, like we're all so different in this group, but we're all Black. That's what people see. And I think that's just so frustrating because like either people feel bad and they're like, what can we do? Or people are like insensitive to the fact that like the color of our skin affects how everyone views us. Like people can look at lots of other races and just be like, oh, cool. Like I wonder what their name is, but you hear like, oh, that's a Black student, Black student, Black student. Like it does blow my mind how insensitive even everything that's going on in the world, just still how insensitive some students and some faculty are to like this struggle, on top of our own personal struggle. Like we still battle with mental health, we still battle with like family matters, we still battle with finances, but then on top of it, it's like this is in our face and we can't even get to start with financial stuff and mental health because like what's the Black experience like? And so it's so hard to even get past that wall and everything else comes like crumbling down. So I think like as an undergraduate student, it's like still very present that no one is standing up for us, even though we have like these task force and like things are moving, but like the day-to-day life isn't changing. And I think that's the biggest frustration.
To add to, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, going off of that, I've heard, I can't even tell you how many times at Rice I've heard jokes and comments about Black students having it easier to get in and complaining about, Black students get in, and that like doesn't allow other people who deserve it more to get in. I've had to like sit in a philosophy class where we debated whether that was true or not. And I just don't, I think that's so tone deaf to think maybe it's just a fun debate for you, but it's very like traumatizing to have to go through that in class and just sit there and listen. And the kid may say something offensive, you have to raise your hand and say something because the teacher is not going to do it. And most of the time, but I've heard people compare like Black people being enslaved to my grandpa. If my grandpa stole something from you, you wouldn't hold that against me. And it's just like, that's not the same thing as slavery. You can't make that comparison. And it's just crazy that you think Rice students would have the intelligence to not make a comparison like that. But there's just I've heard so many things about Black students having it easier to get in, and it's just another thing that makes you feel like you don't belong there. And I can't even tell you the amount of white legacy students I've met at Rice whose parents have went to Rice, who's gotten, I mean, that's some help right there. So, I mean, there's just a lot of hearing things like that in day-to-day life that isn't okay, the jokes and the, yeah.
No, I could add that, like, I would want faculty, anybody like at Rice to know that I'm always conscious of the fact that I'm Black, and whether some cases it's positive, but most cases it's it's a negative form, that I'm worried that people are looking at me, or am I representing the whole race well? And like, I'm just one person, but knowing, like, believing that burden is on my shoulders to like be able to portray the Black race as somebody that's like, don't be too loud, don't be too crazy, don't like act smart, like, but don't be a show off. Like that kind of balance of, I'm just one person, I just want to be myself, but people that are looking at me are going to see all those things and are going to like cross it off as something that like the whole Black race is. So it's a lot of pressure that first I thought that it was like something I was placing on myself. I'm realizing very quickly that it's a lot of things, that's a feeling that a lot of people like deal with being Black. And I mean, as to Alyce's point of like people saying that Black people have it easier or like had it easier getting in. And sure, I might have clicked the box saying I was African American on the Rice form, but I would like to believe that they chose me for more than that. And like, I'm already suffering with imposter syndrome. You don't have to throw that at me too. Yeah, so it's difficult, and I just would like people to know that I'm conscious of the fact that I'm Black. Like, don't remind me of all the negatives that you associate with it, and like give me a chance to just show you me first.
Yeah, I think that projection is really, it's very prevalent. Like that was like, well, at least what you were saying about like, oh, it's easier to get in. Like that's what people told me in my high school. That was very, wow, flashbacks. But like I think, and also to like Casey's point, I have two things. So that the external news that you hear about like Black people all over the world just dying from police brutality, like it's been a rough couple of weeks, especially just like for my people in Nigeria and all over Africa. It's like, you see those news, and then like having to just do your assignments is hard. It's especially like at the beginning when we went online, especially with everything that was going on, the protests, and it was like, it's just very hard to focus. And I think those types of like not being able to separate, oh, this is just news, I don't have to think about this in order to do school, is like, it's not compatible. And second, I think that like our experiences, our negative experiences kind of push us as like Black students to kind of want to make campus better. Like when I came in as a freshman, even sophomore, I saw so many Black upperclassmen who are like working so hard to just improve the campus, like when they graduated. And it's like, it kind of pushes you to work hard as well, but that's like extra pressure on you as a student to, you know, fix systematic problems that have been here since Black people have been here for like the span of your 4 years, plus do well in academics, plus do extracurriculars. It's just, it's a lot of stress to put on like a group of people, a small group of people at Rice.
I do want to sort of augment or place a microphone again to one thing that you just said, in that it's sort of this cumulative sort of snowball of, I don't want to say of struggle, because I feel like that's too general, in that some people derive a lot of, like some Black students specifically derive a lot of inspiration from the thought of making things better for other Black students and those sorts of things. But there is sort of, again, this impossible to account for sort of system of variance in the trauma that people bring to the table. And again, I guess I just want to continue to hit that point home, in that I just think back to the experiences that I had in like high school of like professors telling me, oh, like you're not planning to go to college anyways, or like things like that. And it always sort of augmented the failures that I had academically, and that I felt like I wasn't doing a good job of proving those people wrong. And so I think it's kind of, I think I think faculty, white faculty and, or non-Black faculty rather, could do a lot better job of sort of, again, being accommodating to those sorts of things, and minding their language, and being like very mindful, generally speaking, of the things that they're communicating to Black students, because again, there's no way to account for all of the experiences that we've had that have led up to that point.
I think like I was honestly so captivated by what everybody was saying, and like resonating so much with what everybody was saying. I forgot I was on the panel, but like I guess, you know, to echo like what everybody who's here, like you're making an effort to like learn and understand, you know, so like, but we need to expand the knowledge that you're hearing now to like the people who don't hear this kind of stuff on a daily and like don't interact with like Black people in general. Like I think just watch this recording, share this recording. Like Black people are being vocal, so vocal right now. And I'm just like, just echo our voices and like, don't overpower them. You know, like we have a platform and we're using it, and like, we're sharing these things. Like everybody's shared like stories about, you know, their experience and everything. Like echo that. Like, I don't, like, we're not one group. And the only way you're going to get that, you know, idea is if you listen to a lot of different people, because like not one person has like had the exact same experience as one another. So like I think that's very important, is just like sharing and echoing our stories.
I heard y'all talk a lot about the everyday experiences of racism on campus, and I heard y'all talk about the terrible news from around the world and how that impacts the day-to-day experiences of Black students and interferes with your ability to perform in classes, and frustration with faculty who aren't willing to understand or address or be aware of all of those issues. And I hear that snowballs, and that even though many folks on this panel want to make campus better and are admiring the leaders on the Black leaders on campus who are sharing their voices. We also recognize, I hear that that's an obligation and a burden that's not fair. So we, as a community, need to amplify and echo your voices and share this video. And I hope that we will do that. To your point specifically, I think we can turn to Eden. We can turn to the, some of the Q&A that's come in. And one of the recent comments or questions that just came in spoke directly to your points about how each student is not the same as every other student. This last question is, from a time at Rice over a decade ago, there wasn't a lot of outright intersectionality. Do you feel like the Black community has good partnerships with other underrepresented communities at Rice today, and that students who occupy more than one underrepresented identity are supported? So further trying to understand these complexities of intersectionality.
I think I can speak on, I guess, the good partnerships with other underrepresented communities at Rice. I remember very early on, like in the summer when, the situation was continuing to rise, I received many emails, messages from especially the Hispanic Student Association. And I think it helps that I've developed a relationship with those people prior to our roles now. So I've definitely received a lot of support from those communities. And I think we're now more than ever, I think we're trying to support each other. Also within the Black community, all the different Black clubs, I think we're really, really trying to focus on unity and presenting as one community, but also making sure each subset is represented and supported. So that was just from my experience.
And I guess a follow-on to that is another question about external partnerships. Are Black organizers on campus in contact with other universities, organizers for collaboration? Does anyone want to speak to that?
When you say collaboration, what do you mean?
I'm inferring from the question that perhaps the questioner was interested in trying to, I guess, work with people from other external organizations to promote change in the community more broadly.
Okay.
And I guess with other universities in particular. So University of Houston, are we in contact with folks there? That's what it sounds like.
I know personally, other universities, especially with everything going on in Nigeria, I know that there was an NSARS protest that happened too, actually last week. And then there are universities who contacted Rasa about getting involved. I know some people that had gone and went. I personally couldn't. But I know there's been a lot with that. But I know Rasa is trying to be more involved with other universities and other ASAs. Before COVID, we had something called ASA Week, and we would try to come together as African students and Black students to form a bigger community. It was schools all over Texas. So we had that.
And several of the questions that came in deal with sources of support. So where is the support coming from or not? So one question was around building mentoring networks, with faculty or staff or peers. Another was around specific to RAs and Magisters. Are you getting support there, or could you? And then another was about how can the Black Alumni Network support you?
Just to speak to my experience, and this is in no way indicative of everyone's experience, I do want to clarify that. I feel I was thinking back to Casey's earlier point about people at Wiess, or just Black students in general, not feeling this connection enough with their college to want to stay on campus when they're offered the option to. And it sort of got me thinking about why I'm on campus right now. And I think a big part of that is just kind of luck. I feel like you have to like, I've been very fortunate to be thrown into these situations with, like, one of my advisors was Black and was extremely influential in just sort of my process. And a lot of my friends who, including my white friends, are very, how do I articulate this? They're very, they frequently like are starting conversations, and though it can be draining at times, it also is immensely gratifying to see their development over time and those sorts of things. But I think it's important to acknowledge in saying that something like that is based on luck or fortune or whatever it is. It's not the case for everyone. What that means is that the majority of people aren't really receiving support from a lot of the faculty, staff, or their peers. Like, I definitely have noticed an uptick in those sorts of conversations with magisters and RAs since this recent push for social justice. But before then, we had never talked about it. And I guess that sort of gets back to the earlier point of like being sort of anxious about this being a phase for a lot of people, in that we could just as easily go back to where we were before, and that the discussion just hits a lull, you know? And it's not something that really can hit a lull for us because it's our everyday reality.
I think, well, actually, I know Black students would like to see more support from higher administration, those with the most power, like President Lebron, Dean Gorman. And I think from there, it can trickle down, because we tend to get a lot of very passive messages, very like safe messages that are trying to appeal to two different sides, I feel like, to appeal to the Black students, also to appeal to those who might not agree with Black Lives Matter, those who might not agree with taking the statue down. So I would just like to see the administration, specifically Dean Gorman and President Lebron, consider the students that they have on campus right now and the people that have to go to Rice and live with that. And they live on campus and they go to classes. And I think it seems as if there's a lot of playing safe with like disgruntled alumni. And I would just like to ask them to consider students who have to live with the tangible day-to-day consequences.
I also wanted to say, when looking towards like staff and like RAs and magisters, it's difficult to want to talk about the Black experience and Black issues with people who are not Black. It's difficult because sometimes people don't get things, or like they ask too many questions, or like it's like I'm trying to explain something and you're asking me, well, why didn't I do this? Or why didn't I do that? Especially with situations that happen on campus, like it's a lot of racial profiling, it's a lot of issues with RUPD. Like, I don't know, it's difficult to want to speak to people who don't understand. And when you try it and you have to like force them to understand. Like if I'm coming to you with an issue, I want to talk about that issue and I want to get it out and I want to see something done about it, rather than me having to do like this long explanation, or I don't know, it's just difficult to want to speak about things with people who just don't inherently get it. And of course, nobody's gonna like inherently get it. Like we can't expect people to just understand the Black struggle because it is a Black struggle. But it's hard trying to explain things and having to prove yourself. Like, I know, for example, when everything was going on over the summer, we had like a big track Zoom meeting, and it was difficult as a Black athlete trying to explain like, why am I having to explain myself when I'm saying things that I'm saying? I'm like, this happened, it's a problem, I want something done, or like, can we do something and stuff like that? And it's like, I have to explain why I want something done. It's like, it's difficult having to explain why I deserve like the bare minimum, if that makes sense.
I think with my experience, there's a lot of willing faculty, but I've noticed that the faculty that understand the most are the faculty that their focus is on diversity and their focus is on Black lives. Like, those are the greatest mentors like I can have. They, even if they can't relate to the Black struggle, like they will point me in the direction I need to go. There are so many helpful faculty on campus, and I think it's just sad because I've had really, really, really negative experiences with faculty on campus, and like that's the ones that like play over in your head like all the time, because it makes you just want to shut down and not talk about it, because like you're not being heard, you're being dismissed, you're getting asked, are you calling this person a racist? Like, as if now it turns it back on, I did something wrong or I'm doing something wrong, when it's like, I feel like I'm the one being attacked. But I think like Rice in general, I think there are a lot of faculty that do want to help us. And I don't want to dismiss the fact that there are some awesome people, just amazing people that I look up to. And it is unfortunate that there are the few that make it really difficult, but I'm still grateful for the ones that really do make the effort and go out of their way to reach out.
If I can turn the conversation briefly back to an expert of 39 years here on campus, what do you hear in these perspectives, and how does it resonate with the context that you gave us at the beginning of this conversation?
Thank you, Eden. I think what I am most impacted by is the fact that a lot of the concerns and issues that students are conveying today are the same concerns and issues that we heard 20, 30 years ago, that despite a number of what I call significant improvements, or at least we are trying very, very, very hard to move the dial. To be honest with you, I think that it's always going to be distressing to hear that there's still a significant cohort of your population who just isn't finding the sort of connection and support on an emotional, mental, and social level that contributes to a well-rounded, healthy college experience, and one in which you can look back fondly, and therefore you become that outspoken, delightful alum who's getting everybody else to go and who's invested in the university. And I know that we are keen on making sure students are always feeling invested in part of the university. So while I appreciate that we continue to make strides, I think that it's sad in some ways that we constantly have to have reminders that some of those strides have not been enough, that there have been steps that we think are crucial and critical to our development and growth, which will involve, another year of study or another year of this or another year of that. So I've always been appreciative of those individuals for whom you can go to them and basically say, look, this is a problem that we can address right here and now. Do we have your permission to be able to do that? So knowing that there are people on campus who, if you make a compelling argument and it's something that we know we can fix here and now, there are those who will always going to be willing to listen. And there are those who will always have your back in that process. I also think it's unfortunate that students have to hunt and pick and find the source that they need for that sort of support. It's great that we have Black faculty that students can go to, and they cannot tell you more than they already have how essential, how crucial that is to their development, their growth, to their college experience. So hearing students say, yeah, man, there are outstanding Black faculty who've been my mentors, who've been my guide, I think that's great. But then again, we have this burden that's placed on, number one, the student to find that person. Suppose they're in engineering and your humanities major, you're not going to necessarily run across that person, but also that burden on that handful of Black faculty and staff who can actually commit the time and the resources that students need. I saw that someone asked a question earlier about mentoring programs, and everybody on the planet has taken a shot at mentoring programs and finding ways for alumni to connect, and for students to connect, and for faculty and staff to connect, and mentoring programs with students and other students. I mean, we have done them in 100 different ways, but have yet to find something that works long-term, consistently, so that students know that contact's going to be there forever. And the most successful ones are students who already came in with those alumni contacts and find that those alumni are in their lives. They are picking up the phone. They are emailing them directly. They're not waiting for the student. They're saying, I want to know how you're doing. Let's go to lunch. Let's get on Zoom. Let's do whatever it takes to make sure you're taken care of. So for me, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. It's distressing to hear that no matter how far you go, we still haven't been able to find that magic wand that says, this is how we can change Rice University so that everybody is feeling connected, so that everybody is feeling valued in that process. And until we get there, sadly, that means we have to continue to have these dialogues, because we don't want to get that forward momentum lost. We don't want to lose that energy at any point going forward. I'm not sure I answered your question. It's just sort of a closing thought that I had to everything that everybody was saying.
Thank you for that. I see that we're just about at the end of our time. Are there any other closing thoughts that anyone wants to share? I'm sorry I didn't get to quite all of the questions. Well, then let me say again, sincerely, thank you for being willing to be here and to continue to have these conversations, and for being part of this community. It's what makes Rice everything that we want it to be. And I'm very grateful to each of you for all that you're doing. So thank you for your time, and thank you all, anyone who was here and listening. And as you heard, amplify the conversation. As Jaylen asked us and Eden asked us and Dillon, everybody asked us to share this information. So please do. It will be posted on the task force website soon. But other than that, thank you again and have a lovely evening.